We'll get cracking now. We're going to be looking at digital sales journeys for the next 40 minutes or so. Got a great panel of speakers ready to talk about this. So if you could just quickly please introduce yourselves and your companies. Maybe start down the end.
Yeah, so hi, my name's Alex Penfound and I work for Pinco. I'm a global sales director with Pinco, and I think as you saw this morning with my colleagues Andy and Ian, you know, what we are about is all about how do we automate that customer journey as they adopt UCaaS solutions.
Hey, I'm Simon. I'm the CMO for Nebula. We're an IP owner in the cloud comm space, so we predominantly sell a platform for UC through channel partners and direct to consumer markets as well through a host of different brands.
So yes, my name is Roy Dehing. I am the Director of Service Providers Business in EMEA for audio codes. We have a product called Live Platform, and that's where I position that as a service delivery platform for multicast.
Yeah, hi, I'm Marcus. I'm the CEO of Ecotel, which is a Germany-based service provider for B2B customers. And we are omni-channel. We have a large sales channel with service providers, with partners, but also recently launched our online shop, so digital sales journey. Happy to be here.
Great, so we want this to be interactive, so if you've got any questions, shout them at me and we can stop as we go through. But I think we'll start with the SME. What are the challenges that you see SMEs face when it comes to adopting UCaaS, and how can you help them address these challenges? Very broad question, I know, but good a place as any to start, I think. I don't mind who goes.
Yes, I can go. So, of course, you know, before I was at Audio Codes, I came from Microsoft, and I'm thinking, you know, all the big vendors like Cisco with BroadSoft migrations to Cisco, Teams, they all want to go into the SME market, I would say. But to succeed there, once they, of course, need to drop their pricing, in my opinion. Yeah? But they also need to have the right automation and scalability. So, and this is how we can help our customers, our service providers, to bring that with our service delivery platform.
Yeah, I think Roy hit the nail on the head around, you know, the SME is obviously very cost conscious. So, you know, the margins aren't going to be as rich. So you've got to automate as much as possible. And that's something that definitely, you know, we've seen and we've focused a lot across all our brands around, you know, how can you get the product in the hands of the customer as quickly as possible with the lowest cost footprint on your business in terms of getting the customer up and running. So how can you make it as clever as possible so they can automate and sort of really look after themselves as much as possible, and you can effectively, if you've got sales teams in your business, you know, you want them focusing on your higher value solution sell customers. So how can you help the SMEs self-serve effectively?
Can I add something on this one? So with regards to that SMB segmentation, so I think, you know, if you go into 1 to 9 to, let's say, everything below 250 plus, I think, you know, it's all about, you know, say the connectivity offering and the value-added services that you can bring. In my opinion, everything below 250 plus doesn't need Zoom, doesn't need Cisco, doesn't need Teams. That's what I try to say here as well.
So I think from my perspective, I think you need to, you know, when an SME is thinking about what do they need for their communication solution, ultimately it's about how can you ensure that you've got the material available so that they can fully understand, you know, what you offer as a service provider. And ultimately for me, it's about choice. Because there is no, you know, one shoe fits all. You know, there's going to be different needs depending upon the industry vertical that they're in, that they're coming from. And I think that, you know, as a service provider, choice is key. So it's not just about offering a Microsoft Teams solution. It's not just about offering a WebEx solution. It's offering a broad, you know, selection of options that is available to the SMEs. And then depending on where they are in their journey, you know, they can have the option to select accordingly, but you've also got to make sure that, you know, you're able to digitally inform those customers so they can make the right choice, which is actually quite challenging, you know. When you look at many service providers' websites, you know, it's about how can I actually deliver the right information so that they can make the right choice.
I think nothing much to add, but I think that the big challenge for the SMEs, especially in Germany, we have 3.5 million SMEs in Germany of different sizes. So I think up to 500 employees is still considered an SME in Germany. But the big challenge they have is, on the one hand, the overwhelming complexity in the market to understand what's the appropriate solution for my business, for my specific business. And on the other hand, the decision maker with the enterprises. They get younger and younger, and they significantly change the way they source their solutions. So sitting on the couch Friday evening, Googling for the best solution is a reasonable thing these days for also companies up to 500 employees. And you have to take care about this. Not only about the solution, but also for the sales approach and the digital footprint you leave in the internet to get to know by those customers.
Great, and I think it makes sense probably to talk about automation tools early on. So I just wonder how you're seeing automation tools streamline the process of selling or for the SME buy-in UCaaS from lead generation all the way through to the onboarding.
I would like to take an example. So if you go to a BT landing page from a consumer point of view, if you go to the Vodafone landing page, consumer, you can buy a mobile subscription, you buy a mobile phone, and as an add-on subscription, you can also buy Spotify. You can also add on Netflix. But there is no complexity to add those subscriptions. So if you translate that experience to SMB, and you have the power and you have the smart people in a house that can make those pre-packages similar as you do with the Netflix example that I said to you, then I think that is a rock-solid solution moving forward. But everything here is in the magic of, let's say, pre-package, less complexity. I think we discussed about it.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. I mean, one of the things that we did, one of the things we did with our Yay.com brand is, it's very sort of, you go online and there's 3 plans. It's sort of like good, better, best, pretty simple for the customer to kind of work out where, if you've got the messaging right, where they should land. But actually, like, what's the sort of purchase sort of process and post-purchase process for that as well. It's like a product like that we sort of sell on a 30-day term. We don't have that contractual commitment. So actually, once you've got the customer into that trial, how do you get them and then keep them? And it's really about that sort of trial to buy nurture process. Like we find that, like for example, on a 30-day on a sort of a 30-day SKU, churn's actually highest in sort of the first 3 or 4 months. So the key is to get the customer to that point for us in that brand, for example. So it's all about kind of almost gamifying that. So if they, you set them up and they get that welcome email, and then they go and they set up that voicemail, and they get that. And we've all kind of had examples of that in our own lives where they set up their voicemail, and that's a product-based usage trigger. They then get that email to go, hey, you just set your voicemail up, you're a rock star. Now you should go and set up a call route, and here's how you set your out of office, and you keep them coming back to the product. So it's a blend of high levels of automation, but also kind of marketing touch points around always communicating with the customer and making it really, really simple for them to keep coming back to the product and do that next thing that keeps them invested and sort of keeps them coming back.
So I think for SMEs, at least in their expectation, you have to be cheap on online and simple products. And if you want to sell cheap, you have to have as low cost as possible. So I think automation is key to success, to be cost leader or at least competitive on production costs. So automation is definitely key to success there. And I think, talking again about this younger buying personas, if you once made the decision, I want this solution, or at least I want to test it out for trial month, you need to ship it instantly because there's a lot of emotion involved. So I think automation must be involved to, as soon as possible, ship the solution, give the customer the credentials to test them out, to give them the good user experience, and to provide and offer the product he wanted to have. So user experience as part of the automation to deliver fast but appropriate, the right product pre-configured in a way that you can use it, and not from technicians to technicians with 35 options to still configure and decide on. I think our industry is perfectly in feature fucking and doing all those nasty stuff. So automation must fit to the customer needs and must provide the solution in time, scope, and budget, so to say.
Yeah, and I think for me, automation is really about simplifying. It's as simple as that. It's simplifying that customer journey. How can you make it really, really easy from a click and consume perspective for you to be enabled with that service and actually using that service, within minutes rather than months and years, and typically, we can see that it can take months. I think the other thing as well, it's looking at it from the SME perspective, but then also from the service provider perspective as well. It's very, very difficult for service providers to be able to service the SME market at scale because there's many, many small businesses and it's a high volume business. So by bringing the automation tools in place, it means that it actually lowers that cost of sale. So from an operational perspective as a service provider, it means that I'm able to deliver that service at a lower cost and a lower cost of sale to me.
I think you hit the nail on the head with that as well, because we had a very similar thing in our channel business around porting. Like porting's an absolute pain in the arse. Like for those of us that have kind of been in that world of passing documents around, all the Ofcom regs have all changed. Now, so we kind of automated all of that last year, and that really pissed our partners off, like massively, because they saw it as an area where they added value. We're like, oh, you know, I do that and I manage that for the customer. We're like, actually, you don't need to have value there. So we automated all of that for them. So now it's all done, all fully white label, and it takes all of that off the partner and it automates that. And porting is something that most customers pay. They pay to put their numbers in. So it's actually part of that buying experience, even though it's kind of part CX as well. And we just kind of took all that pain away from them. And then once they stopped being pissed off about it, they realized actually they could focus on the bits where they really do go and add value. And it took all of that pain away.
If it's okay, just to add, the more you automate, the more the product becomes a take it or leave it approach. And I think this also comes with a lot of danger. If you narrow it too much down, if you automate too many process steps and too many options, then you might end up with a product that's no longer capable of more than 30, 40, 50% of the market. And I think even the big ones like Microsoft, Ring Central, 8x8, whatever you name it, they come with a one-fits-all solution for the world market. They live from a high degree of automation and a high degree of same product for each and every market, and they don't end up with 90% market share. And there's a reason for it.
Have we got any questions early on, just before we move on? Yeah, down the front.
One of those. What about fraud? How do you manage fraud when people are suddenly setting up a fast thing and they start dialing Colombia, like going out?
I got an answer for that, if that helps. Yeah, so fraud's a nightmare. I mean, we had a bunch of people I don't know if anyone went to the CCUK stuff the other week. You kind of realise what a nightmare fraud is and actually how we're all trying to fix it, and it's not very joined up and it's all a bit of a nightmare. I think that's something you have got to automate that. We do a lot of things algorithmically where we profile customer patterns, so we can kind of see if a customer, we know what a customer's run rate is. We don't know what it is day one, right? Because you don't know what the profile of the customer is. So we kind of have some benchmarks, but actually that profile builds over time. So we see what that customer's core patterns are and we monitor it algorithmically. So if suddenly a customer starts doing something outside of hours and we see lots of very, very concurrent calls, stuff that looks like it's automated, not human, or something that falls outside of the usage pattern, we lock it down. That comes down to strength of platform ultimately, and it's not always perfect because sometimes a customer calls you up annoyed because they were legitimately doing something that the platform thought you weren't doing legitimately. But for that 1 or 2 cases out of 100 where you get an annoyed customer, it's worth it for the 98, 99 you saved.
Any other questions? No. We've mentioned marketing a little bit. I just wonder what digital marketing strategies you're seeing success with, and how do you make those sufficiently different to your strategies going for larger customers?
I think if you sell online, I think the customer needs to identify with the product. So we use a lot of more testimonials, use cases, let other users talk about what kind of problem did this solution solve. Because you can't directly interact with the customer. At least some of them don't want to interact. And as a customer, I'm one of them. I don't want to talk to some old white guy telling me what's the best solution for me because I already started to Google to read studies and things like this. So the online sales approach must explain itself. So we try to use as many testimonials as possible, different sizes, different verticals, different enterprises. So when a customer looks up the solution, hopefully he will end up saying, I'm like this customer, and if they solved his problem, they will solve mine. While talking on a direct sales strategy or a partner, a channel approach, for example, there's way more consultancy involved and you can sell more complex solutions.
Yes, for us it's a little bit different because he is giving you the examples about end customers and channels. My solutions I'm trying to sell to him as an example, yeah. And where I would like to work with those marketplace vendors because they are there, they're strong, they have the digital sales experience for many, many, many years. So I went to Gartner, and I said, hey, what is the top 3, let's say, marketplace vendors? And I said, hey, this is going to be, for example, AppDirect, it's Cloud Blue, it's Beyond Now. They are that e-commerce enabler or digital tooling for my service providers. So I make sure that I partner with them and take their experience and take their learnings into, let's say, the digital marketing. And for us, it's a kind of consultancy towards you guys to say, listen, it's a one-stop shop. Bring the number in. You should embrace it as a service delivery platform. and it's for multicast because, you know, Zoom is there, Cisco is there, Microsoft is there, but think about you developed an application or value-added services on top of a CPaaS like Vonage or Twilio. Or are you going to say, hey, I have a CCaaS solution from 8x8, and I would like just to terminate the number, but I'm reselling the value-added services. So this is how we try to do it from an Audicors perspective.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk digital channels all day long, right? But, I mean, it comes down ultimately to value proposition. I mean, you know, with some of our, you know, with our Yay.com brand, you know, that's very kind of, you know, small business focused. The channel's obviously very different. It's all relationship led. But then we have other brands that effectively are the same product underneath, but branded and packaged for a different ICP, where, you know, for example, we have a brand that works really, really well with tradespeople, right? And so, like, we needed to remember very early on that what we were selling wasn't necessarily what they were buying. So we were selling a phone system, but that's not what they were buying. You know, the plumber, the electrician, the guy who does landscape gardening, he's not really buying a phone system. He's buying a phone number for his business because he doesn't want a mobile number on the side of his van because he wants to look more established. He doesn't want to be sat at home in the evening with his wife getting pissed off because his mobile number's ringing. So he wants the automated stuff to go through to voicemail. So, like, we're selling a phone system, but that's not actually what he's buying. He's buying a phone number for his business and the convenience that comes with that. So it really comes down to identifying what the ICPs are, making sure the brand aligns with it, make sure the messaging aligns with it, and then in terms of digital strategy, you know, where are they going? Where are they going for advice? You know, if they want to, are they going to Reddit? Right? Are they sitting scrolling Facebook in the evening? Like, if you're trying to sell a SaaS marketing platform to me, market me on Facebook. I'm 45 plus, right? That means I'm, you know, that because kids don't use Facebook. Right? So you're going to get me on Facebook in the evening. That's the only place you're going to get me. It's the only place I've got time. So it's just really knowing where the customer's going to be, right? It's to meet your customer where they are.
Pinko, Alex?
Yeah, and I think I agree with all of that, to be honest with you. I think it really is about, you know, taking the time to understand your customers, understand, you know, your target customers, and understanding your route to market, whether that's via, you know, direct sales or whether that's utilizing your channel partners, because obviously channel partners bring that local touch. So if you can build the tooling and the capabilities that enables you as a service provider, but also your channel partner ecosystem, to be able to automate that journey for, you know, the end enterprise customers that they're working with, I think that's super key. And I really do agree with around the kind of packaging. I think it was this morning, Andrew was talking about, you know, and I think this becomes even more important as you move down to the SME segment, is that, you know, there's no two people are the same. You know, you've got a small plumbing company, or maybe you've got, you know, a 50-person, 100-person IT organization that may be a bit more tech savvy. So how do you actually build you know, bundles of solutions that actually are going to meet their needs? And there could be 100 different features, offerings. So it's making sure that, you know, your customers are educated correctly and understanding what's relevant to them, and then targeting them through social media. Facebook for you, might be LinkedIn as well. I don't know, whatever it is you use. Instagram, you know, whatever it is you use. But yeah.
Another thing to add, I think you can have the best sales strategy, digital online sales strategy of the world. In the end, at least from my experience, the customer will decide which sales channel to use. So you can try to target them, to group them, to approach them in the appropriate way on Facebook for the one and on other media. But at the end, the customer will decide which is the appropriate channel, because the one customer has its trusted advisor on-prem or in nearby. The other one don't want to talk to people like me, for example. So I think finally, being omni-channel might be a good approach instead of trying to force the customer to a specific channel only to be eligible to buying your product. This might not work.
So staying with a similar theme, do you see much success with content like webinars, white papers, maybe even SEO content? Is that something that you factor in when you're thinking about your marketing?
Yeah, if you don't want to directly talk to the customer, of course, you need to provide him, at least to offer him some content to consume, to see how your product works, how others use it. So a lot of video material, for example. We just built up our own TV studio within our headquarters to produce such kind of tutorials, videos, to make common best practices and show them how this works. I think in the generation TikTok, you only have 30 seconds to catch the attention. But anyways, showing them how to use it instead of shipping some FAQs or tons and tons of manuals is the good way to go.
Yeah, I think look, it's you've got the paid digital side of things, which is kind of the shot in the arm because you're paying for the lead, right? And then you've got the long tail strategy, which is SEO, right? Which is like the reality is you know. The average tenure for a CMO, I'm told at the moment, is about 24 months. So you've kind of got to deliver the revenue quickly. So it's kind of, okay, well, that's the bit that's going to get me there now versus the longer term strategy, which is SEO, which means my acquisition cost is going to be far lower. So yeah, it is a blend of those things. And it's the blend of the lead magnet side of stuff as well. So I'm not very big on gated content. There was a time when gated content was the way you would do it. I wouldn't do it that way now. I would give away as much as you can possibly get away with giving away for free. I think like webinars and things like that, they're a good hook. I think on-demand webinars are a better way to go about it now. The thing with webinars traditionally is it takes up a person's time. My view on it now is actually quite different, is like you used to tune in and watch a TV program at a certain time because that's the time it was on. Whereas now I can go to Netflix tonight and binge the next season of Drive to Survive, and I intend to do so. You can have it all at once, right? It's all content on demand, and you can do that with webinars now. So there are webinar solutions that enable you to kind of deliver that content, in a way where someone lands on your site and it says, next webinar starts in 5 minutes, and you think, oh, yeah, I got to time that just great. Just perfect timing. I just happened to land on this website, and the next webinar is in 5 minutes. Guess what? Doesn't matter when you land on the website. The next webinar is in 5 minutes. So you can do that and gate it through that way. So I think video on demand is massive in that education piece as well. But yeah, SEO for long tail, digital lead gen for delivering the revenue now.
Anything from Pinker?
Well, I just think short, sharp, and sweet as you deliver that content. SMEs generally, for me, they're not going to spend a long time looking at what they want to do for their communication solution. So you've got to hit them quickly. You've got to grab their attention, and you've got to do that, through the use of social media, etc. But yeah, I mean, it's always important to have webinars to show what you can do. I think it's got to be focused on specific industry verticals. So I think if that's the way you want to do it, you need to make sure that what you're delivering is relevant to the SMEs. Otherwise, they're just going to glaze over and it won't be interesting to them.
Have we got any questions so far? No? Okay. Let's move on to, I suppose, budget constraints, pricing. How do you go about effectively addressing businesses that have a limited budget and demonstrating the ROI of your UCaaS product sort of very early on? I want to go down to Alex to start this time.
So I think, again, it comes down to that choice. I think that budgets are going to be tight, and I think it really does depend again upon that industry that you're selling into, where they're at, what their productivity suite is. If you're already, for example, using a Microsoft 365, then perhaps enabling something like Teams calling is something you can do. But then it's also it's expensive, let's be honest, for a small business to, make sure that all of their users are licensed appropriately to be able to do calling through Teams, PSTN calling, it's expensive. So you need to make sure you've got the choice so that you can, go down to the budgetary requirements that the SMEs have. That depends where they're coming from. If they're coming telephony first, whether all they want is a basic telephony service, then you need to make sure that you've also got, the offering that can meet those needs as well. So it's choice.
Yeah, I like selling through fear. So I think with micro SMEs, it's really, really cost conscious, right? Because that micro SME level. So I think it's you win it on the messaging. So it's much more like that's how you prove the ROI out. Like you get them scared by it, right? You get them scared by the cost of missing that call, the cost of not answering that call that's going to be that next customer for you. And when these are owner managed businesses, that can work quite well. And then I think as you move, again, it's that definition of SME, right? There's like the micro bit, which is the one-man band. But then if you view SME up to kind of 15 users, which I guess I probably would, then you're then talking offices, but small offices. And then it's more ROI around, you could integrate with this, you could integrate with that. And you're pushing the productivity saving the productivity benefits as the ROI in those examples. So it's really, again, it comes back to that understanding the customer, like what's important to them. Are they going to be scared by that lost revenue opportunity because they missed that call? Are they going to be empowered by the possibility of integrating, with HubSpot or Salesforce, or that's industry specific? We've had loads on vertical specific CRMs. And that's actually really important in SMEs as well. A lot of, things like dental surgeries and those kind of things, that they're small businesses. We probably would view them as SMEs, but actually there's an integration play even at businesses at that level where you can prove the ROI out that way as well. So yeah, I think you can make it work.
I think depending on the SMB segmentation, but I think if you have the right automation in place, you create stickiness and therefore also a good return of investment. If I go back to my example that I said with regards to, let's say, buying a mobile subscription with Netflix, how easy is that? If you do that with a kind of an SMB use case, and you're really sure, because also here is the risk with regards to bringing value-added services to the SMB, you would like to define that value-added services, and you need to convince yourself that that is a hero scenario. Because those scenarios that we talk about, and if you need to pre-package those scenarios, those are endless. There could be millions of options to bring a value-added service in the SMB, but are you really going to convince yourself that you can replicate that into the market, that you can resell that, etc.? So I think about the right automation creates the stickiness from a return of investment point of view. And I think, also where I would like to warn everybody is the risk that it brings, because if you have product teams like to develop something. Yes, and they develop endless if you don't stop them. Yes, and they like to do pre-packages ABC or A.1, A.3, A.4. And that's not a Netflix example, and that's not a Spotify example.
I hate to compete only by price, because this is something which on the long run might always be challenging, except you are the market leader. Like Netflix, if you are the number one in streaming, of course you can be the cheapest one. If you have economy of scale, like an incumbent in a national market or an international big ones, of course it might be reasonable to compete by price, but we try to find our way to approach the customer with the value of the product and the savings, the flexibility, for example. And in Germany we are way behind, we still have 80% PBXs on-prem, and they don't scale. You buy them with 10, 15 or 20 seats. And if you go to a UCA solution, even shipped online, you are way more flexible with monthly subscriptions, with adding and reducing the volumes. And we try to convince the customer that this product is a better fit for his needs and on the long run saves him money. Or we try to approach him on a TCO saving, not only addressing one single need, for example, 5 seats in a UCAS, but also supply him with a DSL line, which is prioritized, with a mobile subscription as well, and save on the TCO.
So you can do this in Germany, right? Because most people, you're still selling to people that are going from having 10 in their offices, right? They're used to having that bare metal. Whereas over here, like most people have had one round in the ring already, right? They're moving from one solution to another, either based on price or based on the feature they're not getting that they want. So I think it's harder for us here than it probably is for you in Germany.
Absolutely, but I think with customers, slightly like with employees, those which come for money, they leave for money. And if you go to the market with a cheap product, the customer will instantly leave if everyone else has a cheaper product. And that's a big danger, and that's the reason why I would, even in your way more mature market, I would try to position ourselves as somebody being better on a single discipline, more flexible, more agile, more digital, whatever it might be, but try to convince the customer that your product is the best fit to his specific needs. Instead of, I have the same than anybody else, but 5 cents cheaper.
So we've gone nearly 30 minutes without really talking about AI. So I just wonder how you're using AI-powered tools, chatbots, virtual assistants to sort of provide support to the SME along the journey.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to go first. I mean, ultimately, from our perspective, I mean, really, it's when we think about AI, it's about how do we, bring that into that, from that point of sale. So how can you make sure that you're making the right decision, as you land on that web page and you're thinking about, well, what do I need? What's the best fit for me? By being able to bring AI there, by having a chat bot, by have something you can talk to say, look, this is my needs, this is what I want, what do you recommend? And it can come back and say, well, look, this is the best product for you because of reasons X, Y, and Z. But then it comes through to the management. So typically, you know, especially within SMEs, you might have sort of an IT admin that's also managing the telephony estate as well. And they may not, you know, have the skill sets or the understanding or the want to learn how to manage their telephony estate. So by infusing their actual, you know, the portals that we deliver as Pinco with AI support, so, you know, guidance as you're going through, as you want to set things up, as well as being able to automate, you know, some of the pieces that you need as you're setting it up, you know, rather than having to click lots of boxes and things like that, you know, the ability for it to then actually, you know, this is what I want to set up, this is how I need to do it. And you get that assistance and guidance and even, you know, the support to do it for you if you're confident enough to let it run off and do its own thing.
Yeah, it's weirdly, it's not one I can answer much on, because in terms of the front office side of things, we've really not gone there, because our focus has just been other areas. Our AI focus to now has been back office. So it's, you know, we've been using AI at platform level. So it's about how we, you know, we use AI and algorithmic tooling for load balancing our platform. Right, so it's much more around how we deliver a secure service and how we deliver a service that scales automatically, that helps us with operational efficiency. It helps us with environmental efficiency, about scaling the platform up and down in those times. You get to 5 p.m. and the platform scales right the way down to a smaller number of servers, right? Because no one's making calls, and at 8 a.m. it scales up because we have a platform that loves traffic. So we kind of use it in that side of things. We use it in areas like porting I was mentioning earlier. You know, we use code algorithmically for checking proofs of ID for KYC now. So when somebody uploads their proof of IDs for porting processes, we have code that algorithmically looks for pixelation in the documents, so we can pick out fraud detection there. And so we're using it. And I mentioned earlier around fraud in to your question around calling, around voice fraud. So we're using it from a platform and a sort of, you know, cost protection, security protection basis. We're not using it at the front end yet, and we need to do that, but we just haven't got to that point yet.
So for me, it's slightly different, and I think also for you guys, as Pinco, I would say. So we deliver a service delivery platform to those guys, service providers. So if you talk about how we drive AI, is to say, listen, we position Live Platform as a service delivery platform. You bring the number in, we bring the connectivity to multicast. And the thing that we drive from an AI perspective is that we have value-added services. We have those, let's say, prepackaged hero solutions already to give them a start, and where we can make more money with value-added services on top of PSTN-enabled services. So, and there's where we use AI. But if you translate that in how those users are using our technology, so yes, we have the contact center, and they're using AI capabilities to do transcription, translation, sentiment analysis, those kind of things. If you would like to do a meeting, and it could be in the segmentation of 250 plus, and it could not be Teams, it could be Teams. We have Meetings Insight as an example that does the summary of that meeting. But we are not so, let's say, in AI and with regards to your question to that digital sales. That's more on them.
I would love to have it on us, but once again, everybody blames us Germans for being so weak, so slow on everything, and unfortunately, you're all right. So AI, we are currently only using internally to, for example, dig our wikis, to grab information and help our people, support people to do a better job, while the acceptance of AI in the German market is still very, very low. And I think I told you before, while the US had just made up 500 billion in investment to Silicon Valley to develop AI, the Germans hired 200 different additional people to regulate AI in Germany. So everybody's concerned about data privacy, where do my information go? So offering AI as a tool towards the customer has a very, very low acceptance in our very specific market. And as we are mainly serving German customers, I think it would not be really helpful. Of course, we make first steps there. And for example, tomorrow we will have our channel meeting with our channel partners, and we will offer them a small help. We will launch a playground where different large language models, different AIs are integrated, and the channel partner together with the enterprise customer can start to just play around with AI to find their use cases and hopefully end up with the idea that AI is not as nasty as they are afraid of, to put their data somewhere to China, US, or whatever. So AI is something you have to take care about, but once again, the customer will finally decide if he wants to use AI or not, and if you force him, maybe end up with a dissatisfied customer that changes to the competitor.
So your ROI is building a data center or buying a data center in Germany and offer it from there.
We do. We own a data
Yes.
center, and we want to proxy those data. But to develop the own AI, the German AI, might be a good idea if we would have money instead of regulatory people.
Yes.
Okay, so we've got a few minutes left. I've got a couple more questions, but I'll go to the audience one more time just in case. Go for it.
It's probably automation rather than AI, but I didn't hear anyone mention migration, automation of existing platform, whatever they've got, into the new one. I think I'd be quite interested to hear whether that's important or not important in the SME world.
Love that question. Allow me? Okay. So I position our products as a service delivery platform. You bring the number in, and if it talks about automation and scalability, that end user in the SME wants to have Teams tomorrow or no Teams, and they will just have a value-added services and mobile connectivity. Or the day after, he wants to have Cisco, and you would like to create stickiness, and you would like to give them flexibility. So I think it's very important to also have that migration in place. But that migration you can only do properly if you have that same single platform where you can offer, let's say, Teams, Cisco, and Zoom. And once that number is in that platform, then you can also own that migration. So I acknowledge that, with regards to, that's also the reason why we say we need to support multicast, NEC-cast, NEU-cast, and NEC-pass. And for example, we work very strongly with BroadSoft. BroadSoft migrations today are saying, hey, you need to go to Cisco Webex Wholesale. The majority on the BroadSoft platform is SMB. But to be successful, Cisco needs to have their migration tooling properly in place. And I feel and I acknowledge your sharing with regards to migration is very important. And we think we can do that. Yes.
Maybe to add, if you do a migration of existing customers to a fully automated or majority automated platform, you have to be very brave. Because automation comes with limitations. If you want to automate, you have your 15 to 20 use cases or whatever, you have a lot of predefined options. And if you haven't been automated in the past, you might have multiple options. And for example, with us, previously, without being automated, some of our people configured manually on the class 5 switch some features for a customer that demanded it, and the customer loved it. But if you try to migrate him to an automated platform, this cannot work anymore. So you lose a bit of flexibility, and you, from time to time, have to reconcile your customer in losing some features for the benefit of being automated. So I think this comes with a lot of bravery to convince the customer to get rid of some beloved features and convince him of the benefits of being automated, which is not always easy.
So maybe just to add to that, obviously migrate is a scary word for everyone, no matter what business you're in. You talk about migration and immediately you start thinking of risk and you start thinking of, the impact that it might have on your business. So I think we heard from Andy earlier today, we take an approach of replicate. So it's replication, it's not migration. And it's all about how can you make sure that that journey from where you are today, from that on-premise PBX, that you're able to gather the information from that, you're able to populate it into the destination platform that you want to be able to go to, whether that's Teams, Zoom, or Cisco WebEx. And then you as a business or as a managed service provider, that is an organic and it's a controlled and it's a risk-free migration for that customer. And over time that they can do that themselves. So that that's where replication comes in, is because the two solutions can actually stand side by side and work in parallel. So if they try to move there and there's a problem, they can easily move back because they're both running in parallel. And then over time, that on-premise platform can be taken to the end of its life. So that's our approach to it. Replicate, don't migrate.
Okay, my time is at 0, but I really want to squeeze in one final question because I think it's important and it's most relevant to Marcus and Simon. So I just wonder, no need to look like that. I just wonder, how do you continue to nurture the relationship post-purchase and perhaps drive that towards upsell? How do you keep that customer that you've maybe not even spoken to?
Yeah, I mean, so that question is really pertinent for us in relation to our Yay brand, because that's exactly what we have. So in Yay, we have a business that has no sales team at all, which is great. It doesn't compete with anything our channel partners do. It has absolutely no sales team. It just has a couple of people who run our ad platforms and our DSPs, and off they go, and they get a budget each month, and customer comes and signs up and looks after themselves, and they maybe raise a support ticket through Zendesk if they don't know how to do something, right? But largely they look after themselves. But nurturing them is really important because there's no contract term against any of those customers. It's all 30-day terms, so it's always you're 1 month away from losing it constantly. So actually that seems weird, having a brand and a business that has no sales team, and it just has a sort of customer success kind of support team that sits around it. Really it's about stability, uptime, performance, features, all of that stuff. Features become a little bit less important the lower down the stack of SME you go, because it's dial tones and voicemail for a lot of it, right? And it's not quite as elegant. Whereas, further up the stack, we have sort of bigger customers like, Bullets and Host Papa and customers like that are more, they're much more tech savvy. They've got more exacting requirements. They've got integrations that mean they're more sticky and they're less likely to bugger off. But when most of your customers in that kind of lower SME segment, like which most of EAs are, yeah, it definitely becomes a challenge. It's regular touch points. For us, it's a lot of automation internally into customer success. So, for example, a customer that's on a cheaper SKU, for example, if they've been billing with us for 6-7 months and they've not really raised any support tickets, we assume they're happy with the service. They're probably ripe for an upsell conversation. That will go into a customer success person. They'll try and do that upsell. That upsell will come with X months. We'll let you have it at X amount discount for X months, so you get them on that journey. We're actually in the process at the moment of putting things like annual pricing in place at a discount, obviously, to try and get that lock-in as well. So, yeah, there's definitely touch points that you can do to try and do that. We've done one of the things that actually was partly informed by some research we saw out of Cavell last year, where, and I'm really annoyed with the term because I didn't think of it myself, which was informal contact center, that kind of contact center need in SME where they don't want to go and buy an expensive contact center SKU because it doesn't work for them, actually doing it through incremental add-ons. So they can almost build their own packages now and go, actually, I want an analytics suite, I want a wallboard suite, I want this, I want that, I want this. And they can just go, okay, I'll have that. And they almost build their own plans, which kind of goes into that cost-conscious need of SME. So it's just regular touch points, regular feature development, knowing what the customer's using, all those product-based usage triggers, so you can really profile what the customer's using your product for, and therefore what they're likely to take from you if you go and have a conversation with them about that feature, that add-on, that bolt-on.
I think I've probably got about 1 minute just to wrap this up. But if I was to go down the line, what would your one piece of advice be to a UCaaS provider at the start of this digital sales journey?
So coming from the vendor side, working for companies that have developed the sort of the networking, network functions, the plumbing, etc., and then looking at the approach that service providers take in terms of, when they start to look at bringing a new service to market, whether it's the first time they're going to be bringing Teams to market, or they're doing Operator Connect, or they want to bring Zoom to market. Because it's what they do, it's what they're comfortable with, they focus on the plumbing. How do we get the connectivity right? And then I feel that the actual customer journey then almost becomes the afterthought, because it's actually the most difficult piece. So I think my advice would be, when you're looking at, bringing on board these new capabilities, is really to come from the other way, and it's think, okay, well, how do we get that customer journey right first? Because we're good at the plumbing. We know we're going to get that done. But how do we make sure that that customer journey is a true digital customer journey? It's truly automated. It's truly click-through, and it's truly delivered in minutes, not in days, not in months, and you're able to onboard these customers quickly and get them up and running.
Yeah, it's all about onboarding, all of it. Literally, how simply someone can, we have this whole thing, we have this sort of saying internally around click to deploy. It's all got to be click to deploy, all of it. So, and you can do all the marketing stuff at the front end, you can do all the fluffy stuff, and, we spent £500,000, on Google Ads to find out what didn't work. So you can really go down that rabbit hole when you can get all of that right. You can get the messaging right. You can get the channels right. You can do all of that. But ultimately, once they come through to your site and they click to buy that product, if the experience from then onwards is really mucky and really disjointed, you've kind of lost them. And that's kind of the hardest part to get right. So get that bit right first.
For me, it's all about, let's say, onboarding, but also pre-packaging. Pre-packaging. If you don't have that pre-package and the simplicity to bring that value-added services to, you as a failure. It's not a hero scenario, in my opinion. And also challenge yourself, because if you talk about SME, and you look to the segmentation, the majority of that SME needs connectivity. That Italian restaurant owner just needs a fixed number and a mobile number. The mobile number is sharing with his friends. Fixed number is doing business hours. He doesn't need Teams. He doesn't need Cisco. He doesn't need Zoom. So find the value-added services that can make sure that they bring the value to that number.
If you start online, take care about ease of use. I think that's crucial for launching a digital sales journey, an online approach. Lower the barrier for the customer to purchase your product, to make the decision to really use it by free trials, for example, and then just give it out, make it as easy as possible to use the product. So I think the adoption rate will be as high. And of course, do the best job you can do and think about yourself as you were the customer. Always try to see this from the perspective of your customer and not from your perspective.
Great. Well, I think we are out of time now. I hope you found that useful. There is another session in this room in about 5 minutes or so, but thank you for being here and thank you to our panelists.